Hello, everybody. I see we are now recording. Great. Okay. Everybody survived last week's first lesson? I hope so. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope everybody's doing well, considering what's going on with the corona. Things are getting better. I know some places in the US are opening up now, so it'll only be a matter of time before the same thing happens in LA. So be patient. So, where are we today? This is the second week of class course number HUM 101, class title Civilization of the West. And this would be, if you're coming to class, this would be your afternoon class from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m. in room 206. But as you can see, I'm teaching from Jeju-do. Background here, I'm in Jeju-do, South Korea. It's beautiful. I don't know if I'm coming back to the United States. We'll see. Okay. And does everybody remember the name of this school? Is this Cal State Los Angeles? No. This is the International University of the East. Please don't forget that. Okay. All right. So last week we were dealing with Russia becoming its first empire and a little of Ivan III. Today we're going to concentrate heavily on Ivan IV, who was more powerful and more dangerous in the Russian scope of history. So that's what we're going to get into here. And it should be a little more exciting than last week. So let me go to the whiteboard and I can start the lecture. Okay. So again, Civilization of the West, Humanities 101. Week 2. In class, today's date would be the 20th of April, just to let you know. Okay. So we're, again, like I said, we're starting with Ivan IV. So born in 1530, Ivan IV succeeded to the imperial throne at age 3. He became known in Russia as Ivan Grozny, which has traditionally been translated into English as Ivan the Terrible. Do you think he got that nickname because he was a nice guy? As you will see later, that's probably not the case. However, this is a misleading translation. Grozny means terrifying rather than terrible. So you can choose which is worse, something terrifying or something actually terrible. Or if it's the same thing. Both are not good consequences. The Tsar is more accurately called Ivan the Formidable or Ivan the Awe-inspiring. So that is for, or what we would call political spin. So his supporters would say he's formidable, which means strong, or awe-inspiring. Does everybody know the word awe? Awe is a feeling that you get when you see something that is so unbelievable you just can't believe it, right? So you will tend to open your mouth and feel awe. You'll just go awe. So on regular things, usually people feel awe when they see the Great Wall of China. How was this built, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago without modern technology? That's how I felt when I saw it. Or people here in the States, when they look at the Grand Canyon and realize this was done by nature and the top used to be the bottom and there was an ocean and these different layers of sediment. So both are awe-inspiring. So I guess this person, the Russian people, felt he was awe-inspiring. Okay. So as I continue, because the new emperor was only a toddler, toddler is a word for a small child, right? We call them a toddler. Maybe from once they start walking to maybe 4 or 5, they're a toddler, right? Maybe just 4. The boyars seized control of the administration, and we talked about the boyars last week. However, seized means they took control. However, they could not agree on any chain of command or choose a leader among themselves for a decade. Russia somehow functioned with total chaos in the capital city. Ivan proved his formidable qualities as soon as he turned 13. He asserted his authority in a manner that impressed everyone and convinced his subjects of his strength and determination. 4 years later, he became the first Russian ruler to have himself crowned Tsar of all the Russias. Ivan III, who we read about last week, had used the title Tsar. And again, if you remember, that was a reference to the Roman Caesars, only in his private correspondence, so only privately. But this fellow had it publicly. Okay? So, on this little reading, I'm going to give you, well, maybe, yeah. So I'm going to give you the questions. This is for the very top here. So I'll give you the questions. So from born in 1530 to determination, I've got a few questions I want to sneak in there. And then I'll add the rest for the bottom part, okay? So I'm going to go to the whiteboard. Okay. So I've only got a couple questions here. It's very short reading. So okay. So first question, in 1530, Ivan IV became emperor. How old was he? Was he 40 years old? Was he 25? So it mentioned there in the beginning, so that should be a easy points there for you if you paid attention. Okay. And the second and last question for this short reading. Okay, so question 2. He would later become known as what? So basically, what I'm asking here is what became his nickname, right? Due to his actions, he developed a nickname. And you need to know what it was. Was it a good nickname or not? So here I'm going to give you your time so you don't accuse me of erasing these too quickly. There are only 2 questions. I'll just give you a little time there to write these down. Again, question 1, in 1530, Ivan IV became emperor. It's another word for king if you don't remember. How old was he? Was he 69 years old? 2, he would later become known as, which means what nickname was he given? Okay. All right, there's only 2 short questions, so that should be enough time. Let me get the eraser. Deal with these right away. Number 1, bye-bye. Number 2, bye. Okay, so let me head back to the reading. Okay, and continue. 4 years later, he became the first Russian ruler to have himself crowned Tsar of all the Russias. Again, I'm repeating because we're just connecting. Ivan III, remember, had used the title Tsar only in his private correspondence. Okay, the new material. Ivan's early experience of the boyars taught him that they were unreliable. He believed with justification that they were likely to quarrel among themselves, conspire against him, and overthrow him if they could. This distrust of the boyars convinced Ivan that he must rule as an absolute autocrat. Rather than allowing the boyars to play any role in government policy, Ivan chose advisors he felt were personally loyal to him as the head of the state. Partly to counteract the boyars' resentment and partly to protect his own place on the throne, Ivan also passed the first laws restricting mobility of the peasant class. Similar actions taken by his successors would eventually lead to their becoming serfs, the literal property of their noble landlords, with few rights of their own. Okay, so let me go into the vocabulary here. There's a lot of strange stuff here. If you don't know unreliable, it means someone that you can't trust. And you can't trust them to do something. They might only do it part of the time, right? Justification means with all the knowledge and rule that you're justified in your belief. So quarrel is a word that the British people still use. American people don't use it too much. It just means to fight or argue, right? A British person will say, I quarreled with my wife last night, but American people will say, we fought, even though they might not have been physical. So they quarrel amongst themselves, conspire against him, which means to make plans together against the king and overthrow him if they could, which means kick him out of power. This distrust of the boyars convinced him, okay, he had to be an absolute autocrat. We spoke about that earlier, and we're talking about someone like Kim Jong-un. So no checks and balances like in the United States. Whereas you've seen, the other part of government has made it difficult for Trump many times. And an absolute autocracy, or like what we had in Cuba with Fidel Castro, there's only one person making the rules. That's it. So he did not want the boyars to play any government policy. He chose people that were loyal to him. And then he passed the first law restricting mobility of the peasant class, which means they could not really go anywhere. They had to stay in the cities that they were born in. And they became a title called serfs, which has nothing to do with surfing, but that they were literally property of the noble, the royalty landlords. So they were owned like slaves and had very few rights of their own. Okay. So continuing. The policy of territorial expansion began under Ivan III, continued under Ivan the Terrible, over nearly 40-year reign. The Tsar conquered the last remaining Tatars, if you remember, those were connected to Mongolians, and extended Russia's eastern border far beyond the Volga River, taking over a swath of territory stretching from the Caspian Sea in the south to the Arctic Ocean in the north. With the Tatars finally crushed, the way was open for the expansion to the Pacific. Okay, so some vocabulary there. Territorial expansion means land, right? Increasing your land. And he conquered or defeated the last remaining Tatars and extended the border. It says taking over a swath of country. Swath is a high-level word that authors like to use. And it just means, again, an area of territory. So instead of, it sounds better to put in the book, a swath of territory, stretching from the Caspian Sea or the Black Sea in the south to the Arctic Ocean in the north. And then when the Tartars finally crushed, which means defeated, the way was open for expansion to the Pacific Ocean, right? And that's why we had a political lady, I'm trying to remember her name, and she lived in Alaska. She said, oh, if I go out to a certain area in Alaska, I can see over the Pacific Ocean, and then I can see Russia. That's the way it is on the other side, right? And ending up for the page, under Ivan, the large Russian army began improving in quality, not quantity. His predecessors, or the people before him, had enlarged the army but had not trained it. Under Ivan's rule, military commanders created specialized divisions such as musketeers and artillery. So, musketeers, that was the name of the long rifle at the time, a musket. And then artillery were the people in charge of these muskets and cannons, right? Okay, so I guess I will continue. Should I give you a question here? Decisions is, well, I'll go to the next page. I'll tell you where I'll stop. Don't worry. Okay. The fall of Ivan IV. After a promising beginning, Russia's strong Tsar collapsed during the second half of his reign. His behavior grew more and more eccentric, and his decisions more strange. In 1581, he struck and killed his son and heir Ivan in a fit of rage in front of several witnesses. Historians believe that Ivan IV suffered from paranoia, severe mental illness, and possibly also a spinal disability that meant constant physical pain. Everyone close to the throne could see that Ivan the Formidable was no longer capable of ruling, but there was no peaceful means of deposing him. Russia was an absolute monarchy, and with no legislative or representative assembly, no constitution, like we have in the United States, which protect us, no balance of powers, or what I've told you before, checks and balances, and no apparatus in the government for replacing an unstable or incompetent czar. So the vocabulary here, collapsed, is just, it's like a building collapse, it fell down. So his power just fell in the second half of his reign. Reign is the time that they give kings. You know, they'll say 10 years reign, just means he was king for 10 years. Eccentric means strange, in this case, strange decisions that people could not understand. Eccentric people here are categorized have been someone like Michael Jackson, who did things that people just didn't understand. Only he could understand them, right? So this fellow, Ivan IV, did some eccentric things and strange. So it said he suffered possibly from paranoia, which means someone who's always worried, constantly worried that someone or something is going to happen to him, right? And then spinal disabilities, constant pain. So that's easy to understand. We go down to no peaceful means of deposing him. Deposing him is kicking him out or getting rid of him. There was no legal way to do it. Again, just like Kim Jong-un, there's no way that people can say, hi, we want to replace you, right? So that's not going to happen. Russia was an absolute monarchy with no legislative, which means law, or representative assembly, which means representation for people. No constitution that protect people, no balance of powers. No apparatus, again, they're using a high level word. It just means no way in the government for replacing an unstable or incompetent, which means he could not fulfill his duties as a king. He was too wild. Okay, I'm going to stop at that point because that's the end of 33. And I have to give you some questions. So let me go to the whiteboard. Okay. So page 33, this is the first question. Okay. See, actually, this is actually, I should put the correct number. Question 3, Ivan passed the first land restrictive law that did what? So this is going to, remember, restrictive is not a penalty, but it limits you from doing something. So this affected, I want to know which group of people this affected, right? What did this law do? Okay. Okay. 4. Okay, 4. Under Ivan IV, what did his military create? Remember, under Ivan III, he increased the army quite a lot. Hopefully you remember the reason why people became soldiers. That's part of your questions the first week. But under Ivan IV, he went one step further. So please let me know exactly what his military created for the benefit of Russia's protection. Okay, and 5. Okay, What strange thing did he do in 1581? If you're paying attention, this should be pretty easy. I don't even think strange is a strong enough word. So what do you think he did that was strange? Did he paint his hair purple? Or was it something a little more severe, right? Okay, and your last question for page 33. Again, hopefully you're paying attention to this lecture. Okay. Some say he suffered from what? So again, I'm talking about some kind of physical ailment, right? So some researchers have said that he possibly, from their evidence, suffered from some kind of ailment or ailments. So that's what I want you to put down here. If anybody knows your more modern history, like World War II, they have now looked at films and realized that Adolf Hitler was suffering from Parkinson's disease because they've shown him from different angles and his hands do not stop shaking. And that's why he always put his hands behind his back and the one hand grabbed the other that was shaking. So, but we don't have any film of Ivan the Fourth. That was too far back. So again, at this time, I'm going to give you a few minutes to do your questions before I erase them. Okay, I'll go over them again. Ivan IV passed the first land restrictive law that did what? So basically, who am I talking about? Who did he penalize with this law? And then 4, under Ivan IV, what did his military create? Again, the hint that I'll give you is under Ivan III, the army was expanded quite a lot, but Ivan IV went one step further. And then 5, what strange thing did he do in 1581? Again, was it just some personal fashion statement, or did he do something pretty drastic? And then 6, some say he suffered from what? So please list the ailment that you think he suffered from. Was it dandruff or athlete's foot? What do you think it was? Okay. So again, I'm going to go to the eraser. Begin erasing. 3. Bye-bye. 4. See you later. 5. Adios. And 6. Hold on. Okay. So I'm going to go back, share the screen, go back to the reading. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be on the next page now. In 1564, Ivan mapped out an area covering about half the Tsardom and decreed that he would rule this area as his personal absolute kingdom. He created a bureaucracy for his new realm, confiscated land and property at will, and dismissed and executed any authority figures he saw as a threat. Ivan also formed the Oprichina, an organization of secret police whose members were called Oprichniki. The Oprichniki were officially civil servants. In fact, they were murderous thugs responsible to no one but Ivan, with total authority to crush anything they saw as opposition to the Tsar's authority. The oprichniki would operate until 1572. So 8 years of terror, creating a climate of fear and secrecy. They provided ruinous or proved ruinous to the stability of Russian society. And Ivan was finally persuaded to disband them. So I've noticed in this first paragraph on this page, there's a lot of tough words here. So let me try to answer these for you. The first one, it says about he decreed. If you and I speak, we only speak. But when a king speaks and he puts it in paper, official documents, it becomes a decree. So he decreed he would rule this area as his absolute kingdom. Okay. He created a bureaucracy for his new realm. Okay. A bureaucracy, and we have this today, it's like an organization that handles all the paperwork. You could even say the DMV is a bureaucracy. And I think everybody that I've ever met, we hate going to the DMV and the endless lines and the filling out the paperwork and the different departments within the DMV just to get an ID, and that is a bureaucracy, right? For his new realm, which means his new kingdom. Confiscate land. This is very important for you to know this one. It means he just took land or built anything he wanted because he was the king. Why should that be important to you? You don't have to worry about the king. Well, I tell you, if you're having a successful life here and you own a home and you have a nice car and whatever, jewelry, certain bank accounts, if you do not pay the IRS, they can confiscate your car, home, jewelry, bank account, just like a king. So that's why you should know about confiscate. So, and then it says dismissed, which we know means get rid of. Executed. They use the term executed when we talk like about a government killing criminals. So he dismissed and killed any authority figures he saw as a threat. And that meant anybody. So we have the oprichniki, which is the secret police, which it seems Russia always seems to have in some form or the other. More recently, we had the Russian KGB or KGB in English, right? Even though they are officially civil servants, but it says here they were murderous thugs. Thugs are people that, in this case, they work for the government and they could use any means they could. If they wanted to set your house on fire, they wanted to beat you up, they wanted to kill your son, they were only responsible to Ivan. So they had total authority to crush. Crush means to destroy anybody that stood against the Tsar's authority. So it says here, creating a climate of fear and secrecy. It just means like making an atmosphere where the regular people were always in fear and doing things secretly. They proved ruinous. So that means they ruined it or destroyed the stability of the Russian society. And Ivan was finally persuaded to disband them or get rid of them, destroy the actual unit of the secret police because it was not living in conjunction with the citizens. The same thing could happen here. If police started going crazy, there would be civil disobedience here in the street and chaos. So they would have to be disbanded or really, really taught in a different way how to get along with society. So this group were disbanded. Okay, so let me continue reading. I have to move to the next page. Okay. When Ivan IV died in 1584, he was succeeded by his son Feodor I. Feodor was mentally simple and childlike, incapable of governing. He was glad to hand his responsibilities over to his brother-in-law, Boris Godunov, who ruled in fact, although not in name. Okay. So mentally simple means not an intelligent person and childlike. So very basic kind of individual here, not an educated fellow. Incapable of governing, which means he did not have the mental ability to govern, right? So Feodor died in 1598, 14 years later. Hereditary rule had been the law in Russia since 1450. But since Feodor was the last of his family, a successor would have to be chosen by other authority figures. A council of 600 boyars, clergy, and military officers elected Boris Godunov. His election began an era known in Russia or Russian history as the Time of Troubles. Although Boris was an intelligent and capable ruler, he had many enemies and was not popular among his subjects. For one thing, he had been an Archinik, so remember it's secret police, and his wife was the daughter of the leader of this feared and hated gang. For another, many people suspected him of having murdered Feodor's younger brother, Dmitri, who had been discovered stabbed to death in 1591 in a mystery that historians have yet to solve. In addition, the boyars opposed Boris's plans to reorganize the administration and make it more efficient. They preferred to cling to the privileges and personal advantages they enjoyed in an inefficient system. Okay, so let me go over some tough vocabulary words. Okay, so we know the word successor, that's someone that succeeds someone. Like right now, again, if I go back to Kim Jong-un, I don't know who his successor would be. Maybe his sister? I don't know. So, but here they knew who they were going to choose. So again, if you remember from the first week, I said clergy is the church. So the boyars, clergy, and military elected Boris Godunov. Okay. I guess this is pretty straightforward. So they opposed his plans to reorganize the administration, and again, make it over to his style, make it more efficient, that it would run better. Instead, they prefer to cling. Cling means to hold on to something very tightly. I don't know if you've ever had a cat before, but if you have a cat that really loves you and the cat doesn't want you to leave, they will jump on your leg and stick their nails into your clothes. They will cling onto you very tightly. So these people who were corrupt, they didn't want a new system. They wanted to hang in there with this bad system because they still had privileges and personal advantages, even though it was not efficient for the general people. Bad folks there. So let me finish off this page on the bottom. The time of troubles was a period of chaos on many levels. First, there was social unrest within the Russian population. Second, there was a struggle for power among a variety of candidates for the throne. Third, fighting broke out among the armies of Sweden, Poland, and Russia. as part of the struggle over who would rule the empire. Okay, so there's a couple of words here. Chaos means complete lawlessness. There's no law. People are just doing whatever they do. Kill, rob, steal, loot. So there was a period of chaos on many levels here in Russia. Social unrest, like I said, the people were unhappy and were suffering. So they are the people that represent the social unrest in the Russian population. But the people in power, they're struggling to keep their power or to attain more power and put candidates next to the king or the throne. Okay? And then struggle is just another word for fighting and suffering. So that would be the end of page 34. So I have to go to the questions. So back to the whiteboard. Okay. So question 7. Okay, oprichniki means what? Hopefully you're paying attention there. I talked about it various times. So is oprichniki, is that the new hamburger at McDonald's? Please let me know if you remember what this answer is. Okay, it's pretty short and sweet. Okay. Next question. Okay, number 8. Let me make this a capital here. I put a small case. Should be a cap. Okay. Who succeeded Ivan or Ivan the Fourth? Okay. Was it Bill Clinton? Was it Barack Obama? Who succeeded this individual? Okay. On to the next question. What existed in Russia since 1450? Now, please don't answer with something like, I think what existed in Russia since 1450? Vodka? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about governmental things here. We're not talking about alcohol. Okay? But I get students who write funny answers all the time. So just warning you, right? Okay. Next question. Okay. Number 10. What was the time of troubles? Okay, what are we talking about here? Again, I'll get funny students that'll say, oh, teacher, the day I got married, that was the time of troubles began. Right? That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking a personal question here. We're talking about the history of Russia. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is the last question for this page. Okay. Okay. Which countries fought each other to make a new king, right? I don't think the list is long. It's not like World War II. It's not 10 countries or more. It's only a few countries. So your key is looking for, if you know your geography, you'll probably be able to guess, if you don't remember what I read to you, which 3 countries fought to make a new Russian king. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer those, because again, this one on this page is 5 questions, so not 2 or 3. So I'll give you a minute to do that. And hopefully everybody's doing okay. Enjoy being at home, relaxing, you know, listening to the lecture in comfortable clothes, having a nice drink by your side. So much more comfortable than being in the class. So look at it like that. Even though I know we miss coming to school, I miss being there. Right? I miss seeing you all face to face. So, but hopefully that will come soon. Okay. So let me go over these again before I pull out the dangerous and deadly eraser. Oprichniki means what? Again, I'm not talking about a Russian dish. Like, oh, is this the new Russian caviar? No. 8, who succeeded Ivan IV? So who was the next king? What existed in Russia since 1450? Again, don't put vodka. Vodka's older than that. 10, what was the time of troubles? Again, no personal issues here. Just stay with the Russian history. And 11, which countries fought each other to make a new king? Okay. The only hint I'll give you is they were a total of 3. That way you don't go crazy. I think you're looking for a list of 10. Okay. So I'm going to get the eraser. Go down to 7. Bye, Oprichniki. Bye, Ivan. 8. 9. Bye, Russia. And too bad we can't do this in real life and just erase our troubles. Bye-bye, troubles. And then 11. Bye-bye. Okay. So let me go back to the reading. Okay. So, oh, okay, so I have read at the bottom empire, so let me proceed. Okay, social unrest. This is, well, I'll surprise you, don't worry. Okay, so social unrest. In 1597, Boris issued a ukase, or royal edict, restricting the liberty peasants to move freely throughout the empire. So it sounds like something that we had earlier, correct? 1601, however, crop failure resulted in famine that caused thousands of peasants to defy the ukase, since remaining on barren land was tantamount to a death sentence. Many peasants roamed the countryside looking for food. Others moved into towns and cities looking for work that would pay wages. In 1603, there was widespread social unrest. The Tsar had to muster the army to put down rebellion among the peasants and other members of the poorer classes. Okay, again, here a lot of tough vocab. So, Boris issued a ukaz. That's a Russian word. It sounds Japanese to me, but it's Russian. A royal edict, which is a royal law. So again, restricting the poor peasants to move freely throughout the empire. Now, they had a crop failure, which crops can be wheat, grain, and it failed. And it caused a famine, which means many people were dying of starvation. So they defied this ukaz or went against it, broke its law. Because if you stayed on barren land, which means it had no crops, nothing to eat, it was tantamount, which just means the same. Tantamount means the same. It's a big word, and this is used by the author. So the same to a descendant. So if you stayed in a place with no food, you would die. So now you had to roam around looking for food. So they roamed the countryside, okay? And then this brought widespread, which means all over the place, many, many cities, social unrest, people angry, protesting, upset. The Tsar had to muster the army, which means bring them together and put down the rebellion. Unfortunately, that means kill peasants. We use that term now if you have a pet of some kind. And it's very sad for me to find out years ago that pets also get cancer. I had a dog that got cancer, and it was suffering immensely. The medicine was not helping it. So the veterinarian said, she should be put down. So that's what happened here to the people who were protesting by the Tsar's army. Okay. As I continue, the struggle for power. After the death of Fyodor, Russia reverted to the days before Vasily II, when power was taken by violence and conquest rather than inheritance. Boris Godunov was a duly elected regent, but despite his intelligence and undoubted administrative ability, he was unable to unify and control the diverse elements within his realm. The situation was ripe for the appearance of a strong leader, but although several men tried to grab power, no one could hold on to it. Okay, let's go with the vocab here. Reverted means to go back to something you used to do. So they worry about people that are caught and sent to prison, and then when they are released, they are afraid they will revert back to committing crime. So this reverted back to the times of people just taking power by violence and conquest, rather than inheritance, which means my son will take over. So it's a very dangerous time. A duly elected regent just means a person that was actually elected by the government. And a regent is a position, high-level position. Okay, it says the situation was ripe for the appearance. So if you have fruit, it's not ready to eat until it's ripe. So now this situation was ripe and ready for the appearance of a strong leader. But although several men tried to grab power, no one could do it. So let me continue reading here. In 1601, the first claimant appeared, declaring that he was Dmitri Fyodor, the first younger brother. According to his story, the body identified in 1591 as Dimitri's had been someone else's body. He, the real Dmitri, had been smuggled out of Russia and grown up in safety. The claim was false. Historians believe the false Dmitri to have been a Russian nobleman. Whoever he really was, the false Dmitri won the support of the Polish army by promising to turn over some territory to King Zygmunt III on his accession to the Russian throne. Despite a triumphal march into Moscow 2 months after Goldanov's death in 1605, with thousands of Poles and Cossacks in his train, the false Dmitri could not maintain power, and the boyars who had never believed his claim of royal birth murdered him in 1606. The boyar Vasily Shuisky then assumed power with the support of his fellow nobles, but although he did succeed in putting down a major peasant uprising, he was eventually forced out. Okay. And unfortunately here too, there's some tough vocab, so let me help you with this. In 1601, the first claimant appeared. That means the first person claiming or stating that he was Dmitri. Again, that's a word you should know, because if you ever have to go to court and you're sued or you're suing someone, they're going to use this word claimant. Okay. Pretty straightforward here. Triumphal. Triumphal is like a victory, a triumph. So victorious march into Moscow. Okay, with thousands of Poles. Poles, that is a term for Polish people. Russians are from Russia. Poles are from Poland. So don't be confused and say, Poles, they're sticks. And then if you have no idea what a Cossack is, that's not a form of clothing, but Cossacks are these indigenous people in Russia and Eastern Europe, and they're the ones that have those really beautiful red uniforms with the long sword and the big mustache, and some of them have whips, and they run around on horses, and they're expert horsemen. Those Cossacks helped fight also. They were brought in as an army. And the train doesn't mean a real train, but when you have a long group of soldiers or people, they can call it a train, right? And then royal birth, again, someone who's actually born as a successor from the royal family. Okay, so that's it for that page. I'm going to give you the questions on this page. So this will be 35. Let me go back to the whiteboard. So 35. In 1601, what forced the peasants to defy Ukase? Okay, so that's kind of like a two-parter for you. You have to remember what ukase meant. And no, it is not a form of sushi, right? And then once you find out what ukase meant, then what forced the peasants to defy it or go against it? Next question. Okay, 13. Which foreign army returned the Russian king, or what they thought was the king, to power? Was it the Mexican army? Was it the United States Army? I don't think the United States existed yet, so it can't be the US Army, right? But there was a foreign army that helped the Russian king at the time, or what they thought was the king, return to power. So you see, I'm not asking you for a date, just asking you to be aware of which country helped them at the time. I'm trying to keep the dates to a minimum for you. Dates are very confusing in history. Okay, and question 14, which might be our last question for the day. What happened to this king? Right? What happened to him? Did he live a long life to be 100 years old? Did he decide, like Prince Harry, to move to LA with Meghan? What did this king, what happened to this person? Okay. So again, this is the time I'm going to give you to finish these questions. It's only 3 on this page, not 5 like the prior page. So again, going over the questions. In 1601, what forced the peasants to defy ukase? So again, first you have to find out what was ukase. Was that a high-level form of sushi? And then once you find that out, well, what made the peasants go against ukase? 13, which foreign army returned the Russian king to power? Again, please do not put the United States. Did not exist at this time. And then 14, what happened to this king? Which means you have to have the answer for 13. Otherwise, you cannot do 14. All right. So, like I said, I think these are the last questions that you have to do for this week. So let me go to the scary eraser. And here we are at 12. So see you later. 13, same. And 14, bye-bye. But we will return to the reading. It's just for your knowledge. So, okay, so you see that we read here to the bottom. Okay. This is a very short reading that we are not going to do any questions on. Yay! Isn't that exciting? So, the invasions from the West. In 1607, a second false Dmitri appeared, again from Poland. Poland invaded Russia with the new claimant and soon established a rival Russian government in the Upper Volga region. The early success of this group forced Shuisky to summon Swedish mercenaries to help him put it down. Again, we remember put it down from the last reading. However, Shuisky soon found himself trying to fight both the Poles and Swedes, both of whom saw strategic advantages to be gained by opposing rather than supporting him. Poland and Russia began discussing the possibility of a Polish Tsar in exchange for an end to fighting. But there were loud outcries of anger in the Orthodox Church against this plan. Since the Poles were not Orthodox, right? In the end, a national uprising led to the election of a new Russian Tsar, the 16-year-old boyar Mikhail Romanov. In 1613, his direct heirs would rule Russia until the revolution of 1917. I think I mentioned it in the last week's readings. The Romanov family was the last noble family to rule until the Russian Revolution of 1917, when Mr. Lenin brought communism to Russia and sadly had the mother, father, and all the daughters and sons shot to death. Okay, unfortunately. But as you can see, from 1613 to 1917, that's 304 years that the Romanov family ruled Russia, a long time. So, to go back over the vocab, invasions, we know that's when one country just storms into another country and starts killing people and trying to take over the country. That's an invasion. So there were a few. It says to summon Swedish mercenaries. Again, a royal term, which means call on or ask them to participate. Mercenaries, as you can see, they're Swedish, they're not Russian. Mercenaries are soldiers from a foreign country who will work for you for pay. We have mercenaries right now that they were high-level soldiers. For example, now in Russia, high-level soldiers are in great demand and work the ships that are normally attacked by Somali pirates. So they will work security there and will, to death, defend the ship if they are attacked by pirates. So the term mercenary has been around for a long time. So again, this might help you with the question I had prior with who, what foreign armies, right? We've got some names of some countries here. So both of these countries saw strategic advantages. Again, strategic comes from the word strategy, which means, in this case, it came from a military, so a military plan. So if you would oppose or go against this person rather than support, you could have some advantages. And then it says they were loud outcries of anger, which in the Orthodox Church. It just means that people weren't crying, but they were yelling so loudly and so strongly and protesting that it sounds like crying, right? So the Orthodox Church was against this. They didn't want a Polish Tsar. Had to stay Russian. And mostly why? Because the Poles were not Russian. If you remember in the last week, we talked about there's the Orthodox Russian Church and the Vatican with the Pope, and they tried to get together, and that did not happen. And the Russians were suspicious of people that were not Orthodox. Okay, so that's why here there was a dislike of a Polish person becoming a Tsar. And then it says a national uprising, which means when a whole country gets together and goes against the established government. Okay, so this uprising led to the election of a new czar, the 16-year-old boyar Mikhail Romanov, 1613, again, which started the 304 years of the Romanov family pursuing or becoming the new and last czar. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to stop there. I don't want to overwhelm you, right? I've given you all the questions I can give you. I gave you a lot, 13 questions today. So we should be done for today. Okay. Very exciting. Hopefully you found this a little more exciting, a little more dangerous Russian history than the first week. Okay. So until next week, which should be the 27th of August, and our third week, we're going to get into Spain at that time. Take care and enjoy your time off. Okay. Thank you.